TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Now, after World Class, you went on to NWA.
Yeah.
How did you make that change?
That was with Gary Hart. I just put over Kevin Von Erich for the world title out of World Class, and we were going into the NWA. And the transaction, it's a bigger territory. You know, at the time, Crockett had a lot of guys. I walked in the dressing room, I was like, man, what am I doing in here, you know? And they had some pretty big boys, and it was a A1 show.
What are your thoughts and memories of Jim Crockett as promoter?
Jim was a good guy. He had his ways, and he got suckered in by Watts. As far as for buying out a territory that he didn't have to buy, he'd have just moved right in and taken it. But Jay respected the guy, and he gave him his money for it, and that was it.
What are your thoughts on Dusty Rhodes? Because he was the booker at the time.
Dusty was good. Dusty took care of me up to the end when he wanted to reopen Florida. And I always said what I want to do when I get ready to retire or end my career, I wanted to run Florida as my last territory. And I worked for Dusty over in NWA when they made the transaction to WCW. When Dusty was on his way out, that's about the time I was on my way out. Because when I forgot the new booker that came in, and it was Flair had an ear on it. And Dusty was leaving, and I said, what do you see for me? I told a new booker in Crockett and Turner, I said, what do you see with me? And he says, I see something, but can you do the Superfly? I forgot what the booker's name was, and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, in that ring, I can do anything. The Superfly is Jimmy. I said, you got 2 weeks. I'll give you my 2-week notice now. You got 2 weeks to come up with something or I'm out.
Right.
And I gave him my 2-week notice right then. And he came up to me in St. Pete. I did a few. That's when Flair had his ear too. And I told, I had a deal with Flair. I put him over anywhere because I knew we were going back to Florida. So I'll put you over anywhere you want. In Florida, I'm not putting you over. And we worked out an agreement. We had a WDQ. So we'd go to Broadway. And the night at St. Pete, Booker come up and said, how do you think that my world champion beating you is going to hurt you? He's beaten everybody. I said, it's not going to hurt me. He said, well, good, then you'll do the job. I said, no, it's not going to hurt me because I'm not doing the job. And they put Eddie Gilbert in to fill my place, and it took them 45 minutes to get the match started because the fans didn't want to see Eddie Gilbert. They wanted to see me, a hometown boy.
What was your reason for not wanting to do the job? Just
that was the agreement I had with Flair,
right.
And he agreed with it. Now, the booker's going to come in there and say, no, I want this. And that night I told whoever it was that the booker was, I told him, you'll be here for 6 weeks and you'll be gone. And I think he only lasted 4.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think Flair just agreed to your face and went behind your back?
Sure he did. I'm sure he did. Flair's a good guy, but he's one that you really got to keep an eye on. And that's why he stays on top as long as he does. And that's why he's still in there now. Because he's learned to take care of himself, and there is no number 1.5. It's Flair, and that's it.
Now, how did you originally get paired with? I know Gary Hart was down in World Class. Whose idea was to bring you in with Gary up there as your mouthpiece?
Gary. Gary was the one. He just taken over the book there, and he brought me in. He said, I'm the new booker here, and it was Brody. Brody was there at the time, too. He said, and I'm your manager. You have a problem with that? I said, no. And Gary started the ball rolling.
In NWA, you were with him, too. What was he like outside the ring, Gary Hart?
Gary liked a little bit of a booze. Cognac was his thing.
Huh.
He wasn't a bad guy. He stayed to himself. He was pretty quiet.
All right.
But he was a good man. He was a family man at the time, too. He was a pretty good guy.
Now, you were in a program with Nikita Koloff for a while.
Yeah.
What was Nikita like to work with?
He had his good days and bad days. He was a little uncoordinated at times, and he broke my nose one of the first times I had my nose broken. It was from him. It just one of these spur of the moments where he just, boom, he just pop up with an elbow, and it was always somebody else's fault. It was never his fault.
Right.
But he was good. He would, if he had confidence in you, you could do anything with him, and he would go with it.
And you also worked with Eddie Gilbert, again, in NWA.
Yeah. few times with Eddie Gilbert. He wasn't bad. I liked working with Eddie.
Did he change a lot from earlier time?
No, I don't think so. Same Eddie.
Also, you worked with the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers.
Bobby Fulton was good. Tommy Rogers had a little bit of a big chip on his shoulder, but like I had no problem with either one of them. One time we did have words, and I just let him know that I'm 240 pounds compared to your 180. If you want to go, let me know.
Right.
Because we'll go, and it was ended pretty quick.
Now, after your program with Nikita, I guess that was the thing with you and Flair, right? Because you seemed down.
I hadn't been beaten.
Right.
I was never beaten with NWA at the time. And that's where Flair had his say-so, because I was the only one left. Because Flair went through everybody except for me. And that's where Dusty was the one that actually took care of me, because maybe Dusty had plans. I was told he had plans.
Right. Did they promise you anything when you first got there?
There was no promises, but it was said, it was so called that I was supposed to be the next world champ.
Okay.
And that's why I think Dusty took care of me on that. I worked a couple of programs, and I think the longest one was Nikita. And when it was time to do a job for Nikita, I did my job for him. I said there was never really lost any matches on television, because that was your build-up. Now you lose them in a house show, you let these people pay to see you get beat. Now everything is done on TV.
Also, you worked with Sting. What was he like to work with in the ring?
All ego. He wasn't bad. He could do pretty much anything in the ring. He would move, but he drew a line. I think that came from Dusty. You don't do this, you don't do that. It was a match I had with Nikita where Gary and I left Nikita laying in the middle of the ring, and Dusty sent Sting in to make the big save. Well, like I said, I never backed down from anybody. When Sting hit the ring, he confronted me. I mean, he committed himself in my zone. And I just looked at him and I said, you got a problem. Because I've never ran from anybody. I never backed down from anybody. And he's hollering, get out of here. I said, no. I said, you get out of here. Nikita was laying between us. And I'll never forget, Gary Hart just put his hand on Sting, put his hand on me, and that was it. And I just backed out and walked out of the ring. Sting went back to the dressing room and complained to Dusty. Dusty, Dusty. He started crying almost. Dusty, Dusty. Al didn't leave the ring. And Dusty told us, well, next time take a chair in there with tea, because then I have a reason to scoop. And that next time never came up.
You think Sting was like that because they were giving him the big push at the time, or do you think that was his personality?
They were giving him a big push. Let's go back a little bit. Sting never sold tickets. Sting sold pictures. Back in my day, you had picture sellers and you had ticket sellers. Sting was a picture seller who thought he was selling tickets. So the ego came in, they were giving him a big push. He wasn't going anywhere with it because at the time it was a ticket seller that they wanted, not pictures. That's when all the color started, with Sting and the Warriors. Now the Warriors sell tickets because of their look, and they beat up people. But Sting was basically there for a ticket seller at the time. Picture seller at the time.
What are your thoughts on the locker room at the time?
To the weekend.
In between the transition of bookers and owners and everything, it was you could cut it with a knife pretty easy. It was thick. Then you had a lot of egos coming through too. Luger, Sting, Steve Williams was there. Flair, Four Horsemen.
I was going to ask you, did anybody's egos get to their head?
Everybody knew their place, though. Everybody was hoping for a different spot if they weren't happy, but everybody knew their place when they got in there.
Were you there when Tully and Arn left?
Yeah.
What was it like then? Did it change at all?
It was time for them to leave, or it was time for Tully to leave, because he was a weak link on that. It was time for them to go. Four Horsemen were already wore out, and he needed a change. You could have called it anything else and kept the same four guys or three of the guys with a different gimmick or different look, and it might have gone good.
TitleMatchNetwork.com